Welcome back to another episode of the one and only Rev Academy. I'm glad to invite all my students here to just talk some hoops. Got a special guest for you guys, but I want to say happy Thursday. Shout out to the Fantasy Reaction. They probably recorded 15 to 20 minutes, maybe less, maybe like 15 minutes prior to this. We got Thursday night football coming up. When this recording drops, it's probably gonna be on like a Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We got a lot of content coming out with you for you guys. We got fantasy reaction coming out tonight. Today is Thursday. Tomorrow we're recording a podcast with Nerd Sesh. The big podcast going to be 6 of us, so that's going to be exciting. But let me bring my guest up here. Let me stop the theatrics and, of course, my brother in Christ, Mr. Carson. Carson, talk to me, man. How you been?
I'm great, dude. I'm so happy to be here. I am pumped for the pick a side doubleheader. I love you guys. I love all the stuff that you guys do. And I'm honored. We've come on with you. We've had you guys on our show. Logan and I have never been on the big official pick a side pod, though, because like you said, 6 dudes, that's going to be a lot on a mic. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something that we've never, ever had 6 people on a
Record
mic.
breaker.
I don't think, yeah, we've ever never done it. So, no, I lied. We had the whole through the wire up there. So that was about 8 dudes.
That was 8. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but they were all in the same room, so it wasn't terrible.
Right. You got to be selfless with the mic in that context.
And one day maybe we could have a in person, recording. We had one with OG, so that one was dope. So awesome. Excited to get that in. Listen, we're gonna talk about some Warriors basketball because me and you, we love them boys, man. I do have to ask. I want to start off with this question first because I've been seeing you on Twitter, and I've been seeing you, Jason Timp, if I'm saying his last name correctly.
Yep, you got it.
A little bit of Drew, and then a couple other people. I just been seeing you guys kind of have this LaMelo versus Haliburton thing, and it's been a nonstop war between the two fan bases. I don't know where it started, but it's just been a nonstop war. And I seen you have a nice little tweet about Haliburton. I've seen Jason be a little bit odd about him, and I know you're a fan of him, and I laugh because it's funny. but I know you're a fan of Hallie, and I am regarded as one of Hallie's biggest haters. Yeah. So I'm not gonna sit here and give my opinion. I want to ask you. He struggled this year. Really bad. Yeah. He struggled to end the year last year. Played okay in the playoffs. What do you think has been the biggest factor to him struggling this year? Has it been an injury? Has it been just lack of, improvement in his game? Has it been the way defenses guarded him? Talk to me about that.
So I don't think that he's healthy right now. And I'm not trying to make an excuse because even saying that he is hurt, that still doesn't excuse how bad he's been. But there's just certain possessions that you watch, certain moments that you see from him where it's like the dude is just not moving right. Like, and we're not just talking about on ball, right? A lack of burst, which I absolutely think he's struggling with. Like, it's change of direction everywhere. It's just getting back in transition defense, right? It's everywhere, guarding in space. He's just not moving like a healthy basketball player right now. So I think that's a real problem. And that bleeds into everything, right? Because, okay, obviously he doesn't trust his first step right now. He doesn't think that he can get by people. And when you don't think that you can create an advantage, he doesn't look comfortable or confident doing anything out there. And he can't create advantages right now. So I honestly think he shouldn't be out on the floor because I really do think that he's hurt. He's not a positive for the Pacers right now. They're 13 points per 100 possessions worse with him out there. He's giving you 15 a night on 50% true shooting. That's the worst of any 15-point per game scorer in basketball besides Kyle Kuzma. So he's just not helping you win games right now. And if he's not hurt, because that's the weird thing, I'm like, why are you forcing him out there early in the season, right? Just let TJ McConnell run the show for 10 games, let his body recover. You're only making this whole situation worse. If he's really not hurt, then that would be the most shocking regression that I've ever seen from a player in their prime. Because you mentioned last year, obviously he had the meteoric start, right? Where he was just out of this world. He was averaging 24 and 12 for like the first 30-something games on crazy efficiency. The Pacers were the best offense in basketball. Obviously he came back from that. But I do think that he doesn't get enough credit for how good he was in the playoffs. I thought that he did round into pretty good form. And I think Hallie's one of those dudes whose impact isn't going to fully show up in the box score, right? Because I think that his greatest strength is decision-making, just the fact that he can create a slight advantage for you working out a pick and roll. And then he's always going to make the most of that advantage, right? Skip pass, to the weak side. And then you've created an advantage there, hitting his pick and pop bigs, finding cutters, right? He's just so excellent at that stuff. It doesn't always result in like big box score production, but results in great team offense. And there's just a selflessness to his game that I think is infectious. And you see it in transition. You see it in all these ways. I thought he was at times not as aggressive as I would have liked in the playoffs, but overall, still a very, very good, genius offensive player just with his basketball IQ. But right now, he just looks like a shell of himself. So I don't know, man. I'm worried. I'm disturbed. They suck to watch. I feel like it will get better because I do think that it's a health thing, but he's been the most disappointing player in basketball easily this year.
Yeah, and it's weird because he was dealing with the hamstring injury last
Yeah.
year. Prior to that, I forgot what the injury was, but he was dealing with another injury prior to last season. So he's been a little bit of an injury prone player. Kind of like John Morant in the sense of you see them play amazing, then they get hurt, kind of
Mhm.
lose an extended amount of time. But then you see Halliburton in the playoffs. He played really good. Then he went to the Olympics. Played for the Olympic team. Didn't really play too much.
Yeah.
So when here's the question is not the question, but it's odd because when did he get hurt? Like when was it known that he was hurt, that he was
Right.
dealing with this severe back injury? And if he is dealing with this severe back injury, like you mentioned, how bad is it? Because they're still thrusting him out there in games consistently back to back. So I don't think he's missed a game this year to
Nope.
start. So, like you mentioned, how bad is it? How bad does it have to get to a point where you just decide, listen, we got McConnell, we got Nemhard, sit him down,
Yeah.
10, 15 games out. Because you mentioned Indiana has not been the same exciting team to watch this year.
No.
And, I guess my question to you is what is their ceiling? What do they do with this type of weird, like rare type of situation?
I think that their ceiling, honestly, is basically what we saw last year, and that requires them getting back to that level offensively. And I'm not saying conference finals again because that was the weakest East, right? And obviously, the conference was decimated by injuries. I think that they are clearly tiers below the Celtics. That goes without saying. The Cavs, I think that basically goes without saying. The Knicks, I think, are a more potent offense that has a more legitimate defense. The thing with the Pacers is that they've always been pretty unserious defensively, and they've been a really bad rebounding team. And I just think their offense can only take them so far, right? Maybe you can outgun somebody to win a playoff series, but that's kind of the ceiling when you're looking at a healthy, stronger East. And that requires Hallie being awesome, right? Because he is the engine that makes everything go. They've got a lot of dudes who can handle the ball, right? You got TJ, you got Nemhard, Siakam is an awesome fit here. They've got skill. They've got dudes who play really well in transition, who can shoot the ball, but like Hallie is the piece that makes it all go. And they need him to be a consistent star. And he's just not even close to that right now. So I think if you're a Pacers fan, man, you feel really, really bad about how the year is started because I think that you have probably had to come to terms with like, okay, our defense just is too bad for us to be a serious playoff team going forward. But then on top of that, your best player looks like a shell of himself.
Yeah, so then what do you do from here? I mean, you have Halliburton, you gave him
Yeah.
this extension, well deserved, I guess. You paid for what he could be.
Mhm.
Understandable. A lot of players go through that. But now you're sitting here, you traded 3 firsts for Pascal Siakam. If I'm not mistaken, it was 3 firsts. He's a bit of age.
Yeah.
You gave Nemharm a nice, cool contract. You have Neesmith, you have Obi Toppin, you gave him a new contract. How does this fit into your whole, like you just mentioned, this defense is unserious. You don't see a way for it to get better. Offensively, this team is great in the regular season, but in the playoffs, if Hallie's not on go, like where's the scenario? Where's the solution in that scenario?
Well, what I've always thought is they need to pair Hallie with another athletic defensive minded wing, right? Basically, find an upgraded version of Neesmith, keep Neesmith, but replace Nemhard in that role. Even though I really like Nemhard, right? I think he's a tough bucket. I think he's got some juice off the bounce. It's just like starting another small guard alongside Hallie with the defensive limitations of a Miles Turner as your defensive anchor, right? That just puts such a hard ceiling on your defense. So that's always been like the type of player that I've been looking for them to add. But if Hallie isn't the guy that they thought he was, then I mean, they're just cooked, right? I don't think that there's a path out of that. I think they need him to be that guy. And then we can start talking about, okay, how do you improve this defense? Getting more athletic on the wings. Maybe as good as he is offensively, try to find somebody who can be a more serious defensive anchor at the 5 than a Miles Turner. Those are the things that could make them a more legitimate playoff threat. But again, that all is contingent upon Hallie being that dude, Hallie being a top 25 player. That's what makes this offense so dangerous. And that's what makes this team good. And he's not
Yeah.
doing that right now, obviously.
And it's crazy because now you see Kings fans kind of jumping back into the horse race, making
Yeah.
their victory lap. Like, hey, listen, we traded this guy. We have Fox over here. He just had 250 balls. Sabonis is playing really well. He's starting to hit the 3-ball. So it's definitely, and you see all these fans and these haters, I'm included, kind of running their victory lap on Haliburton just because I felt like people were putting him into conversations he shouldn't have been in. It was too early last year. I think now it's unfortunate that we don't know whether it's an injury or just him not playing well. I mean, I've seen the stuff about the bed situation, him not sleeping on his bed. I don't know
I mean,
what that is.
that's ridiculous, I think.
I've
That's
never heard
weird.
anything like that before.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure hotels accommodate NBA players the best way they can. So I don't know how that is, but let's get to some positive stuff,
Yeah,
man.
let's do it.
Let's talk some real hoops here.
Let's do it.
Golden State Warriors sitting at 11-3, terrible losses to the Cavaliers, 2 tough losses to the Clippers, a team who I think just stylistically, defensively are a terrible matchup for Golden State. Some nice wins against OKC and a couple other teams, Dallas and stuff like that. You got Steph playing under 30 minutes a game. You have Draymond Green looking like the defensive player of the year, arguably right now. You have the front office telling Steve Kerr he has about a month or 2 to figure out this 10-man rotation. He's playing 12 to 13 guys right now. You just lost DeAnthony Melton probably for the year, which is a tough blow. To start Lindy Waters, he's been fine. How real is the Golden State Warriors? How real is their hot start? And I want you to picture it in. You have Stephen Curry, who I think me and you can agree he's still a top 10 player at face value.
Absolutely.
You have a guy who can still get you a championship. How real is this team in helping him get back to the promised land, or at least a WCF?
It's real. I think that they have that ceiling in there. I'd probably have them as my 4th team in the West right now. I think OKC is a pretty clear top dog. Then I go Denver. I still really believe in Denver at full strength. Then Dallas versus Golden State is close, but I think that I lean on having the Luka Kyrie combo with the athletes they have in the front court with their depth. And then I go Golden State. I mean, this team has been awesome, obviously, right? They're top 5 on both sides of the ball right now, and they're checking all the key boxes that would have determined what was their ceiling coming into this year. I didn't think that they were going to look this good, but all the swing factors have gone completely in the right direction, right? Steph, even though you and I both would have agreed coming into this year, still a top 10 player, he really struggled after the All-Star break last year, right? He was 23 a night, 57% true shooting. I think just the burden that he had offensively carrying that team night after night, I think that wore on him. Right now, you're getting the version of Steph that you need, right? We're not talking top 10. We're talking this dude looks like a top 7 sort of player right now. I mean, he's been awesome. Per 36 minutes, he's giving you 28.5 points, 8 assists, 66.5% true shooting. He's showing an ability to rise to that superstar level where he can look down the other elite guys in the league and he can outplay them. And I think that that's what this team needs if they want to go on a serious run. They need that ceiling from him. Draymond has been unbelievable. I think he's been as good defensively as anybody on the planet. So your anchors on the respective sides of the ball, Steph offensively, Draymond defensively, they are still both in the top tier in terms of how well they're playing on their sides of the ball. And that's a really valuable foundation for this team because then you add in a better version of Andrew Wiggins this year. Buddy Hield has been better than Clay was last year. He's been unbelievable to start this year. The depth is awesome. And particularly, it's the type of dudes they have. They have athletes and shooters and dudes who are bought in. You mentioned Lindy Waters, right? I mean, just off the scrap heap, dude's legitimately very solid. And again, it's that archetype of he's going to shoot the hell out of the ball. He's a bigger athletic wing. He's going to engage defensively. So you put those components around Steph and Draymond, that's a really good basketball team. I do still think when we're talking about them as contenders, I have a couple of concerns. One of those concerns being the lack of a real second creator still in this offense. I think that as great as it is to have Steph in this sort of shooting around him and guys who are moving without the ball alongside him like this, I can't help but think about the 2023 playoffs, right? That Lakers series where it's just everything is on Steph. And the Lakers' entire defense is just keying in on Steph. And if you've got two non-shooters on the floor, Draymond and another big, and nobody else who can really threaten the defense off the bounce, that's hard. That's hard to me to be an elite playoff offense. And really just kind of the lack of super high-end talent on this roster, right? You have Steph, you have Dre, and then everybody else is basically ranging from like solid rotation players to Wiggins has been good this year, but they don't have like the sort of real high-end, top-end star talent that a lot of these other teams out west do when we're talking about the best. And I do still worry about their lack of size in certain matchups. I think you see that actually against the Clippers, right? You mentioned, I think the Clippers' athleticism defensively is tough for them. I also think Zoo is tough for them to deal with. He didn't light them up as a scorer in the rematch, although he did in the first game, but he really dictated the glass. And that's not something I worry about in all matchups. It's something I worry about against the Nuggets, right? With their huge front court. It's something I worry about against the Lakers with their huge front court. But I also think their speed and their versatility on the perimeter means that they match up well against like an OKC, means that they match up pretty well against out east of Boston, as we saw in their matchup a couple weeks ago. So I really like the Dubs. They're a lot better than I expected. I still don't have them in those like top tier contender conversations though.
Yeah, I came in and I thought this is a 10th seed. This is like
Yeah,
a 10th,
agreed.
the 11th seed. I was nervous. I'm like, people are going to start shitting on Steph again. And it really is not his fault. But when you get a locked in Draymond with Stephen Curry, I mean, Stephen Curry's overall numbers right now don't wow you, of course, because he hasn't really had to, they've had a couple. First of all, he didn't play a couple
Right.
games. Then they had some games against Portland. Didn't really need to do too much. He had a nice little triple double. He's been really in his playmaking bad,
Oh, yeah.
really as a passer. But I think you watched it against Dallas when they needed him to go in the fourth quarter, last 3 minutes, last 12 points, completely outplayed Luka and Kyrie down the stretch. You needed him OKC. He did that for you. So I think Steph can definitely still give you those moments. And I think defensively, he's really been engaged this year. I think that's been one of the key things. He looks a lot fresher. He looks a lot healthier, a lot more available, a lot less strain on the body. He's been more active on the defensive side of the ball. And you mentioned it, like they just have a bunch of scrappy dudes.
Yeah.
I think, like you mentioned, size is a problem. Trace Davis is cool, but we don't have a real legit big.
Yeah.
Zubac, guys like Lively and Gafford, they may cause some trouble. Of course, the Joker, he causes anybody hell. But I think this team is good. I think this team has a lot of good role players. What are your thoughts on Brandon and Jonathan Kuminga? These two have been kind of the talk of the summer, Pods.
Yeah.
Maybe not I would say for the same reason. Pods being, he's not in trade talks, he's untouchable. They don't want to move him for Laurie, they don't want to move him from Brandon Ingram, like stuff like that. And then Kuminga is like, all right, you want $40 million? Show me. What can you do? How good can you be? And they've kind of treated his minutes like role player minutes, and it's giving me the vibe that he's not in their long-term solutions. They've kind of come to grips with that. As for Pods, he's just not playing well right now. And I saw a comment by Draymond Green who basically said, y'all did this to him. Y'all forced these expectations on him. I don't even expect this from him. So what are your just thoughts on Pods and Kuminga? Do you even see them finishing the year on this roster?
My take with both of them, my take with every young prospect, every draft pick that the Warriors have had over the last 5 years is that they should be actively looking to move off of any of those guys to get more win now talent, right? I thought that what they did in 2020 drafting Wiseman was a disaster. I felt at the time that they should have moved the pick. If they weren't going to, I was like, honestly, trade down, take a guy like Onyeka Okongwu, who's actually more ready to give you pro minutes. But same thing goes for the Kuminga pick. I think that they have had this whole idea in their mind that they could balance the two timelines, that they could contend now, and that they could still be contenders 5 years after Steph because they're stockpiling young talent. That's always been ridiculous to me. So I think if the right deal is there, yeah, they should absolutely be willing to move either one of these guys. And I thought coming into this year that, like, man, the ship has probably finally sailed, right? Like, I don't know. Is there a window for them to reopen by trading Kuminga? With how last year ended, I was like, I just don't think that there's that high of a ceiling for this team. It might not be worth it. But now I am back in on that. And I really like Pods. I think the fact that they weren't willing to include him for Lowry, and to be fair, I mean, they were also talking about, like, wasn't it 4 first rounders? So that
Something
was going
like
to be a
that.
real haul. But Pods being a sticking point to me doesn't make sense because Lowry would have been the perfect fit, right? He absolutely would have made this team a legitimate title contender. I like Pods a lot, but he hasn't lived up to my expectations this year. First of all, I thought that he would be like the clear, consistent starter in the backcourt alongside Steph.
Yep.
That hasn't been the case. He does so many things to impact winning that I love, right? I mean, he's an elite rebounding guard. He plays his ass off defensively. He has a nose for the ball, right? Charge taker, specialist at every loose ball. Really smart, connective passer offensively. But the shot's been awful. And I thought that he was going to have a great shooting season, honestly. I thought we'd see a little more of him as a creator off the bounce. And he was such a great shooter at Santa Clara and really did show those chops off the bounce that I thought we'd see more of that, but we haven't. He's struggled, and he just has to be more aggressive at times, I feel like. Like there are some shots that I like for him that he just doesn't take. And at times he's like actually negating an advantage because it's like, okay, you had a clean look and now you're basically just passing out of it, resetting the offense. I do think that his role, though, here is more intuitive than Kuminga because he still is doing all those role player things. And when the shot starts falling again, I think he's a really, really good role player. Kuminga has always just been kind of at odds with the Warriors trying to be a win now team, though, right? Because he's not just the 7th pick of the draft young guy. He was like a high upside project, raw athlete, young guy. And I think that you still see that with him. I'm not a big Kuminga guy, especially not for the Warriors with their timeline. I've always been on the side that they should trade him. I do think he's been better off the bench. I think it's a much better fit for him. I think that with the starting group, right, just the lack of floor spacing was a problem, but he's still not ready to be what this team needs him to be. And I just think all the areas you would have liked to see him develop, defensive effort and consistency, we haven't seen the development. Playmaking, haven't seen the development. Shot selection, right? There's still times where I just feel like he takes the offense out of rhythm. I really don't like seeing many Jonathan Kuminga jump shots, especially when we're talking about the threes. And sometimes he's a little too happy to take those shots. So he's talented. I'm just not super optimistic about him becoming like an actual star. And I definitely think if you look at where you're at right now, we're talking about you being like a top 4 team in the West, and you can talk somebody else into, hey, well, Jonathan Kuminga can be a star, and you can get a more win now player for that guy. Like you might be able to turn him into a flawed star right now, but a star nonetheless. I would do that if I were the Dubs.
Yeah, and it's crazy. He's only about, I think he just became legal this year. Like, so he's
Crazy
only
way to
about
put it,
20.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
He's only about, well, legal to drink. I should say
I
that.
know, I
Yeah.
know, I know.
He's only about 21, 22. So he's really, really still super young. And listen, we seen a guy in Charlotte, Trey Mann, who was kind of buried at the bench in OKC. Well, listen, OKC has a treasure box of talent just sitting in there,
Mhm.
and they're just starving for you to just grab it. And Charlotte grabbed Trey Mann, and Trey Mann's been playing well. And I think a team maybe like Brooklyn, who's kind of itching for some young talent, maybe even like Charlotte, who's kind of lacking in the young talent department, maybe they grab him up and be like, listen, make that call. We'll take Kuminga. We need young talent anyways. And I think
Mhm.
if you're the Dubs, you really got to start looking at some options because you have a team here. You cannot waste another great Steph here. You just can't.
No.
You already did that 2 years ago after they won the title in 2023. You were the worst team in the league on the road. We're coming into the playoffs. Steph gave you a masterclass year. You did that again before the title in 2021, where Steph was top 3 in MVP talks, and you didn't get out to play it. So you've continuously done this, and you continuously keep making the same mistake. You have an opportunity right here to right your wrongs. There's guys like Cam
Mhm.
Johnson, Dennis Schroeder. Like there's so many guys on the market right now that you can probably grab up and make available, but you have to be careful. There's teams like Cleveland who are maybe itching for another guy. Maybe a team like the Lakers who's been trying to trade D'Lo for some time now. So I think Kuminga, man, I used to love him. I'm not even gonna sit here and cap like I did it.
Mhm.
Listen, raw prospect, can jump out the gym. The defense when he's locked in is there. He even added a little mini post up game that's cool to watch sometimes. But
Yeah.
you're right. I just think he doesn't fit, and I think Jordan Poole's over there thriving. Now they're trying to compare him to Brandon and saying, well, he's not playing well. We need another guy like Poole, and Poole's playing well in Washington. That was also another situation where, damn, we're looking at that like, we kind of whiffed on that too. But I think that's the most exciting part about this team for me has been Buddy Hield. I think
Oh,
not
yeah.
only on the offensive end, but the effort he's been putting in on
Mhm.
defense. And I guess that's a tribute to how well he's playing on offense. If he's playing well on offense, he'll play some defense.
Yeah.
But man, I can't speak enough about Buddy Hield, man.
He's been incredible, dude. I mean, I've always said Buddy Hield is one of the handful of greatest pure three-point shooters to ever play this game. And people look at you funny when you say that, but like it's just by every possible measure true. If you look at the attempts per game, makes per game, I think he, Steph, and Dame are the top three. I mean, he's 40+% from deep every single season, and he does that off movement, right? High degree of difficulty shots. He's the perfect fit. He is the exact sort of dude who is going to thrive in a motion based offense, right? Working out of these split actions, playing alongside a dude like Steph Curry, playing in the Klay Thompson role. And as you said, he is bought in defensively. And that's why when we're talking about moving Kuminga, when we're talking about moving Pods, which I think is less likely to happen because I don't think he's
Yep.
as intriguing an asset, I'm a little more optimistic than I have been historically about taking a swing on a more offense first player as being the guy who gives the Dubs that extra punch. Because you mentioned some of the candidates, Brooklyn, right? I think they have Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith would both be intriguing assets because Cam can shoot the hell out of the ball, but DFS brings you more of that defensive mindset and is also a solid shooter. He's having a good shooting season so far. But I also think, what if you went out there and you took a chance on like a Zach LaVine, who I
He
absolutely
should have
think
did that in the summer.
I know, but well, also to be fair, PG and Lowry, like those made sense as their first two targets.
Yeah,
Both
but
those would
when
have been
we
perfect.
Carson, when we first of all, I loved PG at the time. We
Oh,
have
I know
that.
that's true. Actually, that's
At the
true. He has
time,
been
P,
horrible.
he has been. And listen, at the time, I don't want to make no excuses for Paul George because I feel like he makes it so hard for you to make an excuse for him because he keeps
Yeah.
talking. And when he talks, it's like shit comes out. Like just nonstop shit. And please just shut up. Just
Mhm.
shut up and go hoop. But at the time, PG was coming off a really efficient regular season,
Yep.
didn't play well in the playoffs, but I thought just the way he could move off ball, play off ball, he
Mhm.
fit well into this Golden State system. He was still a good defender, really good team defender. I thought
Mhm.
he would have been perfect for this team. Um, Laurie too, but I thought, damn, you striked out on those two. You can go get Zach still. I thought Zach was still gonna be available. And Zach, I get it, the 43 million is disgusting, but
Yeah.
my God, that game when he's healthy is really good. And it fits right in. And I feel like he's another guy where offensively, if he's got it going, defensively, he will buy in. He
That's what
will
I'm saying.
definitely buy in.
And I don't want to be like overly optimistic about that, but that's always been the thing that holds me back. Like Levine has been the perfect offensive fit, right? You put that sort of dude who can play off ball like that, who is that explosive a shooter, who is that sort of athlete where if you get him engaged and cutting, like he's a problem. But then also he has the off ball juice offensively because this was on the table last year. And this was something we talked about in the offseason. I always loved that aspect of it. My concern was just like, yes, the athletic tools are there defensively, but we've never seen him buy in. And
Yep.
some dudes just never figure that out. But I don't know. Seeing Buddy, who's been one of the guys who's never really committed to the defensive end like that, seeing him just being in this culture, being in this system where there is so much emphasis on being connected defensively, it makes me more optimistic that like a Zach LaVine would buy in. And at this point, I would just take the gamble, man. Like, yeah, the contract is ugly, absolutely. But what are you going to do, dude? Like, you're pinching pennies right now. Are you really worried about that? You have 36-year-old Steph Curry leaving it all out there for you. You have Draymond Green still doing his job at an incredibly high level. I think you owe it to those guys to go all in on this win now window. And to me, he's like the splashy star move that makes the most sense.
Yeah, and I thought like, and you got to think too, with Andrew Wiggins playing like this. I mean, Andrew Wiggins is another guy who credit to him. He's been dealing with so much in his
Yeah.
personal life and back-to-back seasons, been dealing with some injuries. So it's been a rough, ever since the championship, it's definitely been a rough 2 years for him. But dude, when this guy's another guy, when he's bought in and he's locked in, he is like that perfect number 3, number 4. Thinking of Boston's Derek White, Andrew Wiggins is that for Golden State. He's the perfect guy for them. And you put Zach in that equation. I mean, we had some deals on the table. I saw one deal during the offseason. It was like Chris Paul, Jonathan Kuminga, like a first. Send it.
Absolutely.
What do we send that in? Now
I mean,
I think, like, what are we doing?
that's like no risk except for the contract, right? I don't know, man. I would be more than willing to give up on the player that Jonathan Kuminga is right now, which to me is the most important thing when the Dubs are playing this well and Steph is playing this well, to have Zach LaVine right now. Because that's the thing. I mean, that CP3 contract, that was movable for a dude who just wasn't a good player. But it is a little tricky to make the contracts work without involving Wiggins, and Wiggins is playing so well, because then it's like you're kind of trying to throw together a lot of mid-sized contracts. You would definitely take a real hit to the depth.
Yep.
But also, like, you're not playing 12 guys in the postseason, right? You just need a really good 8, maybe 9. And so I do think it makes sense to do some sort of consolidating move where it's involving the young guys. It's involving a couple of these depth pieces who have been solid, but you feel like you can live without, to upgrade that high-end talent that gives you the ceiling to where in a playoff series, it's not just, okay, Steph, create everything for us, because you're just not going to win a title like that, right? There are teams that are too talented out there.
Yeah, that's true. I guess now we're sitting there. I seen somebody some post about Jakob Poeltl, Bogdanovich being some guys that the Golden State Warriors should target. You know, and
Yeah,
those guys seem dope. I think Bogdanovich, I don't think Atlanta would want to move him. I think he's really good.
he
But
is. They're
if
in
they're
such a
willing,
weird spot, though. It's like they're
yeah.
so between timelines that I feel like they might be willing to, but I think both those guys are great fits.
Yeah, I agree. Carson, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank
Of
you
course,
for
dude.
giving me 30 minutes of your time. Everybody knows Rip Academy would never, ever, ever try to be longer than an hour, longer than 40 minutes, I'll be honest. But thank you for being here.
Of
Plug in
course.
your stuff, man.
I think when Logan and I came on in the summer, I think we went way
We did.
over. We might have
Oh,
gone like
we
2 hours.
oh,
We were
we
yapping.
were we were in there yapping, but we had some fun. So I don't
Oh, we
mind
did.
fun. Yeah, we I was looking, I'm like, when we got into it, I'm like, oh shit, wow, we hit an hour and 30. But
We had a great
as
time.
long as we have fun, but please plug your stuff so people can know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can follow us at Nerd Sesh everywhere. We do a lot of trivia stuff on TikTok. You can follow us there. We also, though, do 3 shows a week. We're talking a lot of NBA. We're talking some NFL as well. So cross social, TikTok, Instagram, Nerd Sesh, Twitter, Nerd_Sesh. And our YouTube channel is where we have the most stuff. That's where you can watch all our full shows. You can listen to them wherever you get your podcasts too. But on top of that, we have some film breakdown stuff where we go more in depth, doing like 12-minute video essay stuff on the NBA especially. So that pretty much covers it, man. Thank you for having me, Riv. Best half hour of my day, and I will see you tomorrow.
Oh,
And I can't wait.
Shout out to Fantasy Reaction, shout out to Nerd Sesh, shout out to the Joel Moran Show, shout out to the Weekly Best, shout out to the big old Pick a Side podcast. We will be having the collab tomorrow, Pick a Side Nerd Sesh. Actually, it'll probably be out by the time this video comes out.
Yesterday for
So,
you
yeah.
guys, maybe.
So, quick question, because you said you watch football before you
Yeah.
leave. We
Yeah.
just talked about it yesterday. So 2 questions. I know me and you are Bills fans, so we lock
Oh,
in
yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah.
Can we do it? Is this the year? Talk to me. Is this? I know we've said it before,
Yeah.
but it just feels like it's different with that defense. Is this the year?
I think it's very possible. Honestly, my gut feeling kind of says yes. Right now, I still have the Chiefs as the slight AFC favorite because I have a lot of respect for that Chiefs defense, but the Bills defense is looking way better. And you get Matt Milano in there. I think that the pass defense is really incredible. The run defense is the one question. And, you know, there's certain matchups in which that's more of a problem, right? Like Baltimore, that's a problematic matchup. But I just think the Bills are a better all-around football team. And I have so much faith in Josh. And we haven't even seen this offense at full force. It's a top 3 scoring offense. We haven't seen the 4 best weapons on the field for more than like 10 snaps all year. And I just think Josh is playing as well as ever. not the flashiest football of his life, but the control of the game, eliminating negative plays. And when you need it, he goes out there and he does that special stuff. He's certainly playing better than Pat right now. So that's probably what it's going to come down to. I don't know. I do think the Chiefs have the slightly better defense, but we saw in this past game, what did it come down to? Who could outplay each other between the two quarterbacks? Who was better on third down in those big spots? And it was Josh. And that's basically what won the game.
Yeah, I listen. Oh my God, I feel it. Like I feel it. This
God, I
this
hope so,
feels
dude.
different. I think this is legitimately the year. But NFC question, because you know I'm also a fly Eagles fly fan. People forget that they disrespect me. Eagles or Detroit? Who do you think if we had and I want to say let's give it a neutral zone game. So
Okay.
it's no home field because I feel like home field you'll sway towards the home team. So
Sure.
let's say this game is in fucking Missouri. Like this game
Sure.
is in Missouri,
Yeah.
random place. These two teams at their best. Who do you think's better?
I'm still taking Detroit. I do think that Philly's number 2 in that NFC for me, but there is just a consistency with Detroit, the consistency of the process, the execution. I
Yep.
think their offensive formula is so easy, bro. Like it's just so automatic week after week. The one concern with them is obviously Hutchinson's been out. Now you have Alex Anzalone out 6 to 8 weeks. If that defense takes a step back with how well Philly's defense has been playing, that to me would be the thing that would change my opinion, but I just have more faith in Detroit. I think coaching is part of that. You know, I'm not a Sirianni guy. I also think Hurts has been playing much better since the bye. I do still question his consistency, some of the decision-making stuff. I think we've seen the last year and a half, he's been more inconsistent than you would like to see. So I'm still going Detroit. Are you believing Philly's the best too? Are you thinking you're going to get a rib Super Bowl, Bills Eagles?
If
It's
I
in the cards.
Carson, if I get Bills Eagles, I don't know
You
what I'm
can't
gonna do.
lose.
Dude, I might streak naked up and down the city if I get. I don't know what I'd do. Like
Stream that
and you
and
know
send
what's
me the link.
crazy? Yeah, you know what's crazy, bro? It's a legit a chance this year. Like
It
I
is.
feel like last year I was hyped up, but then we had the Eagles had a
Yeah.
like they just had a decline. And then Buffalo, they fired their coach. Diggs was struggling. It was kind of all
Right
this weird
there.
stuff. So it
But they
didn't
were
feel
right
like
there.
last year. Yeah. And then this year coming in, Eagles struggle not they was just trying to figure it out. I do agree Detroit has definitely the formula is more consistent.
Mhm.
You know what you're gonna get. They're more punctual. The continuity is definitely there. I think their coaching, I do believe they have the better coaching staff, not defensive coordinator, but I think in totality they have the better coaching
Mhm.
staff. So that's the one I think ingredients for them. But I think just the way we've been playing the last 6 weeks, I think we're hitting our stride at the right time. And
Definitely.
I really wished we did play them in the regular season, but unfortunately we don't. We do have Baltimore coming up, so
I'm excited
we
for
have the
that.
Rams on Sunday, and I think Baltimore next week.
Yep.
So this, two big tests. So we'll see how it goes. But Carson, thank you for being here. Shout out to Riv Academy. Drop a like, go follow my boy, and we'll see you next time.